3, 2, 1.
Hey everyone, thanks for joining us for another episode of the Tea Time.
Where you don't necessarily need a drink, but join us today for the discussion of marriage. Today we have Matt and Joel. Thanks for joining us, guys. We really appreciate it, you know.
Yeah, no problem.
How you guys doing today?
Doing good. Thanks for having us. Appreciate it.
Yeah. Always our pleasure.
Looking forward to it.
Alright, well, I guess we can, we met you guys in college. I guess we should start with a little bit of context and background. Amadeo, myself, and Joel met Matt in college, freshman year. Mm-hmm. But Joel's back on our show again, gracing us with his presence.
Yeah, good to be back.
Thanks for round 2.
For everyone that doesn't know, friend from high school, very near and dear to us. So, usually on the show, what we like to do is start the show with what we call a tea break, where we ask a series of icebreaker questions, kind of pick your brain a little bit. They're going to be off the cuff. You guys weren't prepped for them, so just answer them with the first thing that comes to mind.
All right.
Sounds like a plan.
Cool. So the first one, teleportation or flying?
Teleportation.
Yeah. And honestly, that's my preferred power. If I could choose one power, it would be teleportation.
I thought you were going to say preferred mode of transportation.
I already teleport. It's okay.
Not yet.
No,
Yeah.
Definitely teleportation.
Yeah.
I'd much rather just get point A to point B as fast as possible.
And I feel like if you can teleport, you just teleport to the sky and then you can fly anyway, right?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Kind of.
You just fall.
You constantly have a parachute with you.
Well, no, because then before you hit the ground, you just teleport to the ground. You
just teleporting.
They always say it's about the journey, not the destination. At the end of the day, I'm just trying to get where I'm trying to go.
Yeah.
Okay. Next question. If you could travel to any era of time, what would it be? Would it be future? Would you stay in the present, or would you go to the past?
Like Renaissance, or
I'm gonna let Matt answer that first.
Probably year 2100.
2100.
Oh yeah.
So you go to the future?
100% to the future.
Uh-huh.
I understand what happened in the past. The 80s sound pretty cool, but at the same time, the advances that we've made from like 2000 to now, I'd just be dying to see what life would be like in 2100.
Yeah, just the technology and everything that comes out.
Hopefully by then we have flying cars.
Yeah.
No
more pandemics.
No more pandemics.
Yeah.
And then you don't have to choose between flying and teleportation.
Yeah, because yeah. Where do you?
For me, it's a hard question. I kind of wouldn't mind going maybe 10, 15 years back, and I wouldn't mind going 10, 15 years in the future, but I was wondering, am I my same age when I travel back and forth? Like, or I need some context to this.
Yeah.
To this question.
Let's say, you're the same age, like right now.
Same age, but I can travel through time. Maybe future then. I'd maybe want to go like...
It would be a one-time jump.
One-time jump?
One-time jump.
That's pressure. That's pressure right there. But maybe at that point, honestly, maybe 5 to 10 years in the past. And I say that because then I would kind of know how things are going to play out in 5 to 10 years, and I could prepare for those things.
You'd be back in college with us.
Yeah.
Yeah, you could...
Stop you from having that one night.
I'm literally just do elaborate.
Oh no, I think that's enough for the show. No, you could also capitalize on that and definitely like invest in some stocks or like
Bitcoin.
Just steal
Bitcoin?
All in.
Yeah.
2017 Bitcoin.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Okay, next question. What are you currently doing? Like, what's your occupation? Are you in school or?
Yeah, I think I talked about it a little last time I was on the show.
Mm-hmm.
I work in special education, and so my job title is an intervention specialist, and I am a social emotional teacher to students with mental disabilities and mental health issues.
Very wholesome, very much needed.
Yeah, it is fulfilling. It's difficult sometimes for sure, but it is it's fulfilling. So
yeah, absolutely. Matt?
I got my degree in civil engineering. I do land development engineering. The basic way to describe it to people is that I tell people water flows downhill. But someone tells me where a building is going, and I design everything outside of the building and up to the building. So,
Gotcha.
pretty much it.
Very wholesome and needed too. I mean, people
Yeah.
need places to live, so
Absolutely.
All right, well, let's dive into marriage a little bit.
Well, first, before we actually dive in,
Oh.
what's your current relationship status?
Oh,
So we can, then dive in. See where you're at with it.
for some context.
Yeah, mine is for sure complicated, but
Not single. Not ready to mingle.
I am single. But it's like one of those things where I would say like I do have like relationships, but I wouldn't call myself like in a relationship, and I wouldn't call myself like completely single either as well.
Okay.
Yeah.
I feel you. It's not like an entanglement or anything.
No, I
Or
try
a
to stay away from
situationship.
those. I try to stay from the situationships and the entanglements. For sure.
Yeah, I feel you.
And I am actually married.
Oh, we have a married
Yeah.
man here. That is
Yep.
a beautiful thing. And when did you get married?
We were supposed to get married June last year.
Mm-hmm.
And that didn't happen. Everything going
COVID.
on.
COVID.
Then we were supposed to get married in beginning of August. That didn't happen. We were thinking about moving it to November.
Uh-huh.
Things weren't looking great. So we ended up going to a courthouse in Indiana and getting married on August 28th.
Whoa. Nice. Congratulations. Like, I aspire to get there to marriage one day,
Yeah.
but
Definitely wasn't expecting it at 25, 26 years old, but that's the way she goes.
Yeah. Well, that's what we're here to talk about
Yep.
today. Happy almost 6-month anniversary,
Yeah.
by the way.
Thank you.
Because it's coming up on, what was it going to be, Saturday? Sunday? Sunday. Sunday's the 28th.
You know better than I do.
So,
let's not show up our guest, okay?
Yeah.
Because-
I'm just happy to share the knowledge that I have, which happens to be the calendar at this point, you know?
I'll definitely keep that in mind.
Cool.
Let's see.
So, jumping into the topic then. First question. Do you have to get married? Do you think it's a necessary thing for two people to do? I can open it up a little bit, but I guess I want your initial thoughts.
Okay. Me, I don't think for a healthy relationship that you need to get married per se by the standards of like certifications and things like that. But I do think that commitment to one person is special, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I think, especially with parents' generation and everything, there's always a huge pressure that you had to get married. Like that was a part of life. But I still don't think you necessarily have to get married. But it's at the same time, it's like, why would you want to be with someone for many, many years without doing that? It's like, what's the difference at that point?
Mm-hmm.
Just from being, because I was dating Bree for 8.5 years before we got married.
Mm-hmm.
Honestly, not a lot really changed in our relationship besides I wear a ring and we have a piece of paper that says we're legally married.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like, if you're planning on being with someone, for the rest of your life for a long time, why wouldn't you? But at the same time, you only should if you actually, like, there's other reasons why people do get married, and I just don't think that that's a reason to get married unless you can see yourself being with this person forever.
Yeah, like the reason you should get married is because you love each other, right?
Correct.
Yeah, I feel the same way. Like, I want to get married, but the reason why is only to celebrate my love with my wife, with all my friends and family, and invite them and like have them present. Like if you're getting married for financial reasons or legal reasons, if it's to help the other person, then you're not doing it for the wrong reasons, but it's not the most right reason, which is just pure love.
Well, at the same time, you also see plenty of people, maybe even know some people, they may not admit it, but maybe they got married because, they had a kid or something like that, where it's like they feel like they had to get married.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, and I almost feel like that shouldn't still exist, that obligation to feel like you have to marry someone because you have a kid with them.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, things happen sometimes, and
Yeah.
I think in the benefit of every party involved, that shouldn't be the reason for marriage. So it's like, maybe in that instance you don't, unless you realize that that's a person you do love and you want to spend the rest of your life with.
Yeah, and I feel like that's super situational too, though, because it's known that children that develop in two-parent households develop differently than single-parent households. But at the same time, if it's an unstable marriage to begin with, and it just adds more tension into the house, then it might have been different otherwise. So
yeah, like if it's any kind of because if you got married just because you had a kid and not because you loved each other, there could be a
resentment.
That's exactly where I was going. Some type of resentment, and it's like, how healthy is that environment? How healthy is that environment to raise a kid in?
Yeah.
Rather than two separate like happy households in a way, where they ended up potentially finding people that they actually like wanted to marry down the road. It's a very tricky area, but at the end of the day, I always think that you should get married when you're with someone that you want to spend the rest of your life with, and no other like outstanding reason besides that.
What are some benefits that you two see to marriage? The follow-up's going to be consequences, so feel free to speak, however.
Benefits, I guess. I mean, taxes.
Partner.
Yeah.
Wait, so why did you get married?
We're almost asking you that question.
No one's going to be coming out of it No, the main benefit to it is that, and I guess my situation is definitely different than a lot of other people's. She grew up in a very traditional type of household, to where she necessarily couldn't live with someone unless she was married. So I guess just in that was a benefit. We did end up moving in with each other prior to actually legally getting married.
Yeah.
But at the same time, a benefit that I see is, I found someone that I get along with unbelievably well. I consider her my best friend. We can do anything together, and we could do nothing together. So it's like, you can always feel like you're with someone, but at the same time, you can still feel like you're, doing your own thing and
not feel guilty and
being alone in a way. And I mentioned to you guys earlier, it's like finding someone you can be alone together with.
Yeah.
Still kind of doing your own thing, but doing your own thing together with someone is kind of what is it that just that alone is a huge benefit of just being married, because it's like she'll like watch her show and I can watch a game or something. We're together, but we're doing separate things, and we're happy with that. And just doing, she's happy doing what she's doing. I'm happy with doing what I'm doing. Finding that is in a marriage, I guess, is what I feel
just
like
wholesome.
it's a good benefit. It's like one of the best benefits I could see. It's like just having, waking up and seeing her every day. I mean, we've only been married for 6 months, but
oh, Matt, you're melting my heart.
You've been there.
But it's like just like actually being able to see her, because dating for 8.5 years, not having that aspect of it necessarily every day.
Yeah.
Being able to finally be able to do all that has been a huge
benefit.
Huge aspect of it.
Yeah. Joel?
I think similar to what Matt said, and of course I'm speaking from what I see from the outside looking in.
Yeah.
But I think that it is, what's good about marriage, benefits from it, is having a partner, is like what he described. And having a partner with a romantic relationship is completely different than having a partner that's like a business relationship. And I think having that security and that type of love from somebody is something that's special, in the sense that you can count on them and you can know that you have somebody there to support you. I think that's like one of the biggest like parts of marriage, is like having somebody that you can count on to support you, and that you are willing to support them no matter what. And it's very binding to me, and that is one of the things that, depending on the person and the situation, can be seen as a benefit or a consequence in my eyes.
Yeah.
If I can dive into that a little bit more, the whole, like with Bree and I, we're very supportive with each other about still wanting to accomplish personal goals to where we can help support the other person accomplish those personal goals.
Like that level of accountability.
Yeah, and it's, whether it's, because we have a dog, whether it's, watching the dog so she can participate in her online classes, or, maybe staying home from work for a little bit longer because I'm trying to study for my exam, to, just things like that, or even just like rooting for each other and having someone that's constantly on your side and everything like that about, the outside world, and wanting to continuously build each other up in order to not only make the individual the best they can be, but if you both are
doing that
at your highest capabilities, then your relationship's just going to continue to blossom.
Yeah, it's just like that unconditional giving up yourself for the other person, knowing that it's going to come back to you too.
And not even doing it for knowing that it's coming back, but doing it because... Yeah,
just like out of, blind love.
Yep.
It's legitimately the coming together as one, and as I've been sitting here just kind of listening to you explain your marriage, I'm sure Bree would be so happy to hear it. Just because the way you describe it is a coming together of like just two different people coming like as one. I think that's really special.
Yeah.
That being said, what does marriage mean to you? What did it mean to you before you even got married? And what does it mean to you just in general, I mean,
I'm kind of curious to see what it means to you before I say what it means to me.
Yeah, for sure. What marriage means to me, similar to what I said, I think, and it depends how you view marriage. If you're in America and you are talking about our
view of marriage,
our view of marriage
to it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And so I think if you're viewing it from that standpoint, again, very binding. It means that you are pretty much committing your life legally to somebody till the day you die, no matter if it's she dies first or you die first. And I think it's a huge commitment, and that's a huge part of it as a way that I view it as. And it's one of the things. It's very main. There's a lot of other things and components to it in my eyes, but that is one thing that has always stood out to me about marriage, is that when you say your vows, you say till death do us part, meaning that you are committing.
Ride or die.
You are committing to somebody till the day that you die, and that's not an easy decision to make. It's not a simple decision to make. I don't think it should be taken lightly either. Yeah, not at all. It's like something that you are committing to, and there's not many things that you do other than marriage that you commit to till the day that you die.
And to that extent, and like that level of seriousness.
Yeah, it's a huge commitment, and that's kind of what it means to me. And then also like having the support of somebody and having unconditional love from somebody, and that's
I kind of want to bring something up that you said to me. That you said in general. It was about the view of, I guess, America or Western marriage. You said one of the biggest things that stick out to you is the legality of it, right?
Yeah.
But the components of marriage started from the church. Why do you view it so heavily legally then? You know what I'm saying?
Can you kind of like clarify that question? Why do I view it so legally?
Yeah.
Even though it came from...
Yeah. Why do you
attach so much weight to the legal aspect instead of the church aspect? Is that...
Yeah, that's
part of that. Honestly, part of that comes with the laws that we have of marriage, that if anything were to happen with the marriage and divorce, of splitting half of your possessions with that person, whether it's either way that goes, you know? And so I think that is huge too, because we put a lot of our time and our effort and our focus into success, let's say, especially in America and a Western world, that many people try to accumulate wealth, they try to be successful for themselves. Put a lot of your time and your effort into that, your energy, and so to know that a lot of outside factors that kind of have nothing to do with the work that you put in, whether and on either end of that. It's like that is why that sticks out to me, to know that those things can be infected by your romantic relationship, and as well as even like tax benefits, you said, and a lot of like different tax laws that come with it. Like it's, you live a different life when you're legally married.
Yeah, yeah. I just wanted to bring that up just because of the possessions, and it almost brings me to the thought of the first question we asked you is like, what are the benefits and what are the consequences? Because there's a benefit to growing together with somebody. You obviously accumulate a lot of assets.
But then a consequence could be that, like,
the division of those assets,
yeah,
if things go sour.
And that could be detrimental for both parties and children, no matter what. Even if, like, just the dividing of wealth, however way it goes, like, that has a lot of consequences to it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So what does it mean to you, then? I mean, on the reverse side.
I mean, I never really had a plan of like when I would get married or what marriage would look like to me growing up. From us, started dating for a week in middle school, then going to high school, graduating high school, still dating. I was like, oh, why don't I see how our college relationship is like? Went through college, came out of college. I was like, all right, now let's see what our real life relationship would be like. Going for a couple of years after college, finally realizing that, hey, everything's going pretty well. Then obviously that's when, I proposed, and eventually we got married. But seeing how she was always there with anything, I wanted to do. I was there for whatever she wanted to do. Kind of just being there for one another throughout everything, being supportive of each other, having the similar views on everything. Because again, I always go back to what some of the most important aspects of like finding someone you want to marry. You have to be able to discuss religion, finances, in-laws, and children.
Yeah.
Like those are just 4 huge aspects of it.
Yeah.
And a lot of that surrounds big fights, and it's like being an agreement on all those is pretty much what led me to want to marry her.
Yeah.
If there was like a big dispute on one of those, would it be like a red flag? Depends how it would be resolved.
I don't want to like really go into
the depth of what you've been through.
Well, what I'm trying to say is I'm an engineer, love numbers.
Yeah.
Everything you see, people, you hear about stuff like, divorces happen because of those 4 aspects. Like statistically, most divorces are because of one of those aspects. So it's like if you can't agree on one of those are so like the 4 the 4 biggest things that in a marriage your life is going, and it's something that people necessarily won't change their mind on. They won't necessarily change their mind on having kids or not, or number of kids, or how you're going to deal with your in-laws, or your finances, or religion. So it's like trying to convince someone that you're trying to spend the rest of your life with changing their mind on one of those aspects.
Maybe you found the wrong one, and
I don't know if that's the right person.
Yeah.
Can I say something? I think that so those are like really important topics. And maybe we could get into this later, but one thing that I thought of when you were saying this, which I wanted to touch on, is that I think that in order to be in a healthy relationship, and marriage is one of the healthiest relationships you can be in, is I think that your temperaments have to match with that person. And so like if your temperament doesn't match and the compatibility, then I don't think that you should be in that relationship.
Compatibility plays a big part then. And
that's kind of where Bree and I are. We're both very level-headed people. We don't get worked up about a lot of things. But if we do, the other person is always like, we're never like both worked up about it. I guess the best way to say it. And it's like the other person almost talks the other one off the ledge in a way. But it's at the same time, neither one of us get too overly emotional about certain topics, about much really.
Mm-hmm.
And I think finding someone that had a very similar temperament as I did, someone that doesn't, blow up about things, or someone that just doesn't care about anything,
Mm-hmm.
finding someone that matches pretty much exactly how I feel about most things is another reason why it's like, we don't have like huge blow up fights.
You
like
guys have been together for so long too that I think at this point, if either of you are acting a certain way, the other knows. It's like, okay, either they're just going through a mood, or like they just need to vent out really quick. Like because you know each other so well that you know when it is personal and when it's not, and you usually probably never gets personal, because why would it?
We just know when a person just needs to
get talked off the ledge, like you said.
Get talked off the ledge, or just let them be for a little bit, or being like, what can I do to help? We're very open about all of that.
Just empathetic and considerate.
Yeah, and it's like, I think we understand each other better than any other person understands us. But it's also, we've been together for the longest. But it's at the same time, I know when she just needs to rant about something, and I'll sit there and just listen to it. But she also knows that if I'm doing something, I'm like really pissed off about it, that she's just like, just gotta let him be pissed off about it for a little bit, and then he'll be fine in like 2 minutes.
Yeah.
So it's like,
you've learned each other's like,
we've picked up on it. We know not to feel personally hurt by it. Mm-hmm. We just are just like, okay, this is what it is. But it's also, neither one of us get to a point where it's like we're offensive to the other person.
Yeah. You guys are just mature about it.
Yeah.
Kind of want to add something to that. It's one of the other questions that we wanted to ask was like, how do you know who the one is in general, right? But I think you touched on a lot of that. But I also want to add another aspect to it, just because you did start off at a young, longer time period in general, right? I guess, does time play an aspect in knowing who the one is,
Or is there such a thing as love at first sight?
I don't know about love at first sight.
Does it take 3 dates?
I mean, I have to at least say hi and know that she can communicate with me.
You gotta get a smile at least. Be like, okay.
Yeah, something. And I think that it's important to know that you're compatible. And that's why I say, like, you don't know. If you see somebody, you can be physically attracted to them, or think that they're a beautiful person or attractive man, whatever it may be. But how do you know that you will get along with this person that...
Maybe you don't even speak the same language,
And that's one of those things. Communication is a huge part. What if you guys don't speak the same languages?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's interesting, just because hold on, I kind of want to address it for the crowd out here, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So let's look back at the aspects of the financial, right? Compatibility. I kind of want to throw in longevity in general. What else? Religion, children, in-laws. These are the things you got to consider if you're going to get married. Okay, everybody. These are the things. But the knowing who the one takes longer than just love at first sight in general.
I've always heard you have to spend every season of the year with somebody before you can figure out if there's someone you want to spend the rest of your life with. Because
I feel like that's a good rule of thumb now that I think about it.
Every single, you have to spend the, Christmas, New Year, winter holidays together. Learn how, with their family, how they are, how you guys kind of want to split that up. Then you have a downtime, usually a little gloomier between, New Year's and spring. When it's like, what do you do? There's no holidays, you're just kind of hanging out. And then spring comes and summer, and it's like, how are you guys going to be over the summer? Are you guys going to still stick together over the summer? How, I guess,
one more travel oriented and party.
Exactly.
Stuff.
So it's like being able to see how a person is throughout every single aspect of the year. I think is at least what you need before looking to move forward with someone.
As soon as you said that, the first thing that came to my mind was, I do think that's important. I think that when you have seasons like we do in the Midwest, and you see the difference of the changes in seasons and the times, that it's important. What also came to my mind was that I think that it's important to, when you said seasons, I knew what you meant by like the weather and all that.
Yeah.
But it also made me think about your seasons of your life with the person.
Mm-hmm.
And you may not meet somebody when you're 14 years old, like 13, and know them from that age and see how they develop. But I do think it's important to see how people handle conflict and how they are when they're happy, how they are when they're sad, and going through these
100%.
different phases to see if you guys can still be compatible and
like,
work things out. And reason because if you don't know how this person handles conflict and you guys can get through conflict together, then you don't know if it's something that can have the longevity.
Yeah, because if you don't know how someone is in every emotion that we can feel and express, that might affect the relationship. Because let's say you're someone that gets really, really excited at times that excite you, but the other person gets excited too, but they don't like express it the same way, right? So even though it's a positive emotion, it can lead to a negative aspect of the relationship.
Yeah, like for us, I mean, because we've been together for so long, we've been through, deaths and other tragedies and other aspects, whether it was like with our parents, with siblings and things like that, seeing how one person dealt with it and how the other person like helped or tried to do what they could, and seeing the empathy of the other and how we genuinely cared for each other in situations that were hard for ourselves. On just that alone just really made me sure that moving forward, as we faced additional challenges throughout our life, that we would continue to be there for each other. And it wasn't like one of us is going to bail or be like, okay, you're being like over dramatic about something, but it's like being on the same page and understanding what the other one's going through, and whether it was like a financial distress or, like I said, or like a death, or even just like an argument where we just did something that the other person didn't like. I mean, we haven't really had too many arguments, mostly because being together for so long, we kind of know what pisses the other person off.
Right.
So we kind of know, just don't do that.
Yeah.
But
you've grown together, especially from such a young age.
Yeah.
Like, let's say you guys started dating now, and we were having this podcast, the 8 years from now. It would have been a different time frame, because
completely different situation.
You're already who you are. You've developed into your own personality. But as you're growing up, as the name implies, you're growing up, right? Like, you're going through college, you're going through high school. There's hormonal changes, but like societal changes and different, just cultural things we all go through that shape us all in our own way.
Trying to really understand how she wanted to date me in the first place. I was something else in high school.
Matt, from what you've said, you seem like quite the catch.
Or really in love, one of the two.
It's a little bit of both.
The black skinny jeans, not much has changed, but the band shirts, lip ring, straightening my hair, that kind of guy.
You used to have really long hair too, didn't you?
My hair was all the way down across my face. And
was it down to your shoulders?
Yep. And I would straighten it every morning. And
crazy.
And then, not really caring about school, but just kind of being naturally good at it. If you asked pretty much anybody else in high school, they would have been like, oh, like, this kid isn't going to like do anything.
Yeah.
But she always kind of like stuck around. Then I knew what I was going to do. I just didn't care about high school. So I knew I was going to go to college and pursue like civil engineering. But
yeah, you just didn't look the part.
I didn't look the part and talk the part and really act the part in high school. But for whatever reason, she stuck around. So
yeah, well, you're successful now. So
I'd love to see how Brie would talk about you, honestly.
Maybe we'll have to have an episode just with her.
I think that'd be a very interesting contrast.
Joe, you look like you have something to say.
No, the conversation just had me in my thoughts about like just all of this. So
yeah, it's got me in my heart.
Yeah, and it's good to hear like other people's perspectives and your own personal experience with it, and hearing like I know Bree, and so seeing you guys together, what I've seen of you guys' relationship, you guys were together before. I met you guys, and you guys are still together, and so it's just like good to hear about how all of it's going and how like you view things.
But definitely appreciate hearing from your guys' side, because I've been with her for over 9 years now, so it's like it's not a very typical progression in relationships to marriage that a lot of people have.
Yeah, Definitely.
So it's
True.
it's hearing some other perspectives on it really gives you different feelings and outlooks on your own relationship.
Just a different way to like think about it and
Yeah.
process it. When it comes to relationships, the last one I had was when I was a senior in high school. So it was ages ago, right? And my approach to marriage is, I know I want to get married because I definitely want to love someone unconditionally. I want someone to unconditionally love me. But I think partly because I haven't been in a relationship for so long, but also because divorce rates are so high, breakups are so high. And to me, it's great hearing your perspective because it goes to show that like, okay, there, is a chance to find like true love, right? Like part of me is kind of questioning the whole concept, not because like it's fake or like I got hurt or anything, but because I haven't been in that position, I wonder, I'm like, is it achievable? Like, can I get to that point? And at one point I want it, right? But I think it's gonna be a lot of growth from that part of myself and like working together with the woman I find and like going forward and stuff.
So on the flip side of that, I think that it can be a good thing because when you do find somebody that you feel that connection with, I think that it'll be very apparent to you since you haven't felt that,
Yeah, true. Like it's gonna like slap me in the face. Yeah.
I kind of want to add another aspect. Like you and Bree have grown together, right? But in a lot, I mean, you can hear maybe different perspectives. Maybe your parents, my parents, your parents, might tell you get your stuff together before you consider,
Getting
married, right?
Yeah.
Kind of to the flip side of the growth aspect into, if you're ever going to find somebody that you can love in that aspect, getting yourself together and coming together with somebody else that has their stuff together, emotionally, physically, mentally, spiritually, all that, I think can also provide that bridge where, you actually have a genuine connection with somebody. Because it allows for, concentration in that relationship, that your focused attention, undivided.
Yeah. And kind of going off what you were saying, part of the reason why I did take us, 8.5 years to 8 years to get like engaged was that we both had our own goals that we wanted to accomplish prior to getting married.
Did you guys talk about that openly?
Yeah, we both wanted to graduate college. We wanted to establish ourselves as people, like actual adults, I guess is a better way to say it. And then from that point on, I knew I wanted to pass my professional engineering exam prior to getting engaged because that was an unbelievable time commitment for that.
Yeah.
And she wanted to continue going back to college to get her master's degree to continue on in her career as well. So being able to establish ourselves in our careers for a couple of years, figure out, okay, this is what we like to do. It was at that point where we're like, okay, we kind of experienced a little bit of adulthood. We experienced, the college years, high school years, all of this together. Just that alone we accomplished what we wanted to. And to the point to where we're like, okay, anything we do now, we're going to continue to do together. So it's like, kind of a bad way to say it, but it's like, why not get married? But it's,
Yeah.
So like there's no other progression from this point that would take us to the marriage point. Like we were at that point.
Yeah.
We accomplished what we wanted to accomplish. We were established in our lives, in our personal lives, in our own careers. We were doing what we wanted to do. So we're like, why don't we?
Yeah, I think I'm at that point where I finished the formal aspect of establishing myself. Like I finished school and then grad school. Now I'm looking for work. I don't think I'm in a place where I would want to fall into a relationship. Because I'm considering moving out of state, and so if I meet someone here, like, are they going to come with me? Are they not? If we're dating for 3 months, is that a conversation you even have with someone?
Yeah.
So I don't think I'm at that part yet, but hearing you say that aspect kind of makes me wonder that because I went through it alone, I think the person that I'm going to be looking for, she has to also kind of be in a similar space where, you know, maybe she she hasn't been in a lot of relationships herself, because otherwise, if she has, maybe she'd be expecting things from me that she got from her previous boyfriends, but, you know, it wouldn't be fair to hold me to that standard and vice versa. So it definitely opens my eyes a little bit hearing that, to kind of understand maybe like what I'm looking for, what I can expect, or, you know, what mentality I should have going into a potential relationship.
Like, going off of what you said, I mean, I've been with my girlfriend for 2 years. And I think going into it initially, it was more so like we vibe very well together, and there was a good connection, like from the jump. You know, somewhat like at a love at first sight. I remember looking into her eyes and just being like so caught up, but but nonetheless, I think about that aspect of like, you know, being fully established and then coming together. I also feel like there's an aspect where you don't have to be 100% there. Just because of the way I see it, you know, I see a future in where I'm going with her, you know what I'm saying? But I think that's something that you have to openly be able to talk to that person about. More than anything, it's the compatibility and the capacity to communicate about those wants in your life. And I see it in that light because I don't think I'm like in my prime yet, you know. I don't think I've reached you know, my final form yet. And, you know, I think she's getting to that point too, but we're like growing together in that aspect. And I appreciate that aspect because you can see the different seasons while, you know, also
supporting each other, like you were saying,
supporting
and
each
reaching
other.
that final form together. Whereas it sounds like you guys were trying to at least get to that final form-ish, and then kind of be like, all right, now we can, because we're done dedicating ourselves to ourselves, we can dedicate ourselves to each other.
It's like, I mean, I would never say our relationship was never like serious, but it's,
right,
you know, every single phase that we went through, we're just like, okay, let's see how this phase goes. It was like, you know, starting a new chapter in our relationship.
Yeah.
To where we knew that we still wanted to be individuals in accomplishing what we wanted to accomplish prior to getting married. We never wanted to feel like one of us was potentially holding the other one back. But we've both gotten to a point now where I believe that we can continue to grow potentially almost faster now that we are together. We got to like a tipping point individually, and now it's like, well, our way to continue to go up from here is to start this adventure together.
Yeah. Now, transitioning a little bit to starting an adventure together. What happens when it comes time to end an adventure together? Specifically, divorce, breakups.
Yeah.
Does it have to be bad? Does divorce have to be bad? Why? Then, you know.
Let's preface that question a little bit better with, like, you know, we don't assume that you're going to get divorced.
I mean, none of us get divorced. You know, I guess you're the only married man right now, but we're all going to be faced with that. Maybe thought somewhere in the back of your mind, you know? What are your guys' takes on it? Do you have thoughts on it? Have you thought about that yourself?
About, like...
potentially getting divorced?
I guess
it's not a
friendly way to put this is I have been around relationships that probably should have been, so I see it as I am not against divorce, especially if it leads to a toxic environment for both parties and children and everyone involved. I think that there's been cases where people have gotten divorced and it's ended up better for everybody. I understand, you know, there's things out there that say a complete home with, you know, the original mom and dad helps the children, but at the same time, kind of tying back to where we were in the beginning,
Yeah.
I think there has to be reasons, or if you're going to get divorced, there's got to be some kind of significant problem, and a lot of the times it's, either hopping into the marriage too early, developing some kind of resentment for the other person that it's like, I feel like that's one of the worst things you can do, because then it just becomes a completely toxic environment, and it's like, who's just going to be the one who commits to the divorce first kind of thing.
Would you say it should be a last resort?
I think
because there's marriage counseling and
it definitely depends on the situation. If there's some significant issue
where it's like irreversible, almost you can. Like,
then it's if you feel like you two are drifting apart, whether it's a stressor of kids and work and things like that, as long as both parties are willing, I think counseling is a huge thing that people probably don't take advantage of enough. Because just that alone, whether it's you have to figuring yourself out first in order, because you can't have a successful relationship unless you're okay with the person that you are.
Yeah.
So whether it's individual, couples counseling, I think just that alone is definitely a step if it's not like some kind of traumatic event in a way. I guess that's the way I'd put it.
Yeah, that makes sense.
I kind of want to throw this in there just, and I want to get your thoughts about it too, especially just because it's dawned on me a little bit that divorce and I guess a singular relationship besides marriage, right? I kind of see a point where you can stay committed to somebody without being married, right? And it's like how other people can get into relationships and not necessarily put a name on it, right? And they can still be committed to each other in that sense, in an agreed kind of way, right? So I don't want to say that divorce is a cop-out, and obviously, it's necessary to a certain extent, depending on the toxicity. But if a relationship can have the same trials as a marriage, what would be the actual point of a marriage? Because the cop-out is leaving the relationship in general. I wouldn't even call it a cop-out, but the end point of it is the end and dissolvement of the relationship, right? Whether that be divorce or an actual just relationship where you leave and separate, What is there a big difference between that? I mean,
I think so. And I think that, and that's why I was saying that nobody should take marriage lightly, that it's a huge commitment. And, when it comes to marriage, I think that divorce should be, and this is my own personal view, but I think that divorce should be the last resort, as well as the only legitimate reason for divorce, for me, should be infidelity. Other than that, outside of that, and I know there's a lot of factors, a lot of different people, times, and dynamics to relationships, so, I can't speak on those, but I do think that when you make that commitment, you should be committed to that person till the day you die, as you say. And so the reason why I said that infidelity is a legitimate reason for divorce is that when you are unfaithful to somebody, you are breaking that commitment. That legal commitment, that binding commitment. And a relationship is a little different because you didn't make that binding legal commitment to be faithful to that person, to be honest and do these things that you made this commitment to. And so if somebody breaks that commitment, is when I think that
they broke the marriage.
Yeah, exactly.
So legally they broke the marriage. I mean, in that same kind of respect, I do understand the difference of gravity, but I want to give you guys a situation, kind of like a question, and it'll preface kind of infidelity in a marriage and maybe just in a relationship in general. So imagine you're married. It's been 10 years. Significant other cheats on you.
Whoa. 10 years?
10 years. 10 years.
Okay.
You guys been together for 10 years.
It's a long
time. And I don't mean to just, give you the situation, but I just want to,
pick your brains a little bit.
See the perspective of it. It's been 10 years. Your significant other has cheated on you. What is your initial reaction? And then what are your actions following the initial reaction?
I mean, I guess initially, if it's something that, if I feel like the relationship's going really well and that happens, it would be like complete and utter shock. Like, seeing someone, I guess, almost like die in front of you in a way, because you're just like,
You'd get hit by
you're seeing like everything's, like your world
in that instant
point
changes, yeah.
is like crumbling in front of you. Like, what's going on? What was I missing in this relationship? What was wrong with me, kind of thing. Why are they resorting to this? Like, what happened? What went wrong? What was I missing? And everything would kind of be crossing my mind at that point. And it would, the infidelity in a marriage, I agree with him completely. It's like, that is completely like
the end. You would cut it off at that point.
There's
no questions asked.
There's no excuse for it. And it's like, because it's like at that point, the other person's done with it.
Okay.
It's like there's no other reason why they would be doing it unless mentally they've
checked out.
They've put it in their mind that they're done with the marriage. So it's like, if that ever happened, there's no doubt in my mind I'll be like, then this is just done. Like, I just don't see what else could have happened that we couldn't have talked about, or like there was probably plenty of other issues going on to where we could have figured out, okay, I guess if you're just not happy, then
we'll just end it.
Hold on to that thought, okay? I want to hear what you have to say.
Yeah, I think it depends all the context of the situation and why, but it would for sure be shock. Anger would be a huge emotion I was feeling, and the confusion of where did this go wrong. If it was going well and I thought in my mind that I was giving my significant other everything they needed and I felt supported and I felt like I had everything I needed, then I'd be very confused as to why that would happen. And then I would go divorce them. Expeditiously.
With the quickness.
Overnight it.
I find that interesting, right? Because one, it's till death do you part, right? Infidelity obviously breaks the marriage. But then I guess if you look at relationships, there are people that get cheated on and take back their significant others. Would you ever find yourself even considering that? Because there are people that are not in such a commitment that would work through that issue.
Yeah. Can I say something? So I think when it comes to that, with forgiveness and specifically cheating, a huge part of that comes to what did I do or did I not do that contributed to your infidelity, right? So if I treat somebody horribly, and I don't think that's a reason to go cheat on somebody. You should break up with that person or whatever. Take care of what you need to take care of before you resort to being unfaithful. But I would definitely consider what their reasoning was behind it, and that would affect my decision on forgiveness.
So, other than your after action from the initial reaction, saying that being said, would you consider, is it length or is it, the grace of just,
Would I consider forgiveness? Yeah, I think it wouldn't be length, not just length of relationship. It would have to be about my connection with this person, and again, what I did or didn't do that contributed to that behavior. And I do think grace is important and forgiveness is important in relationships, and you can't get through a healthy relationship if you don't have grace or forgiveness for the other.
And you can't talk about things like what we said earlier.
Yeah, I just think that if there is infidelity at any stage, how can you go to bed at night with someone that you don't trust?
Yeah.
So if you lose the aspect of trust in any sense, in any aspect of it, it's like how
there goes everything.
And then again, it leads to resentment. It leads to constant questioning. You it could potentially bring up personal insecurities, and it's those are things that I would probably have to work on myself. But it's being highlighted by the actions of this person that I thought I was going to spend the rest of my life with.
Yeah.
So
I feel like that would cause a dramatic change in one, both of the parties, and two, I also want to bring up the aspect that, let's say after 10 years, you're a changed person, you're an entirely different person, right? Do you think that would change the relationship, like the dynamic between your marriage? Because if infidelity brings that kind of trauma, that trust, like you almost don't know that person, right? Over the years, people change regardless, and not saying that you wouldn't trust them, but would you care to relearn that person after that? Because they're an entirely different person from what you recognized before,
So is this like after like a separation and coming back together again, or is this like a...
Yeah, it could be a separation and coming back together.
It's... You can definitely people do change.
Yeah.
And you can definitely pick up on if they learn from mistakes. Are they like a different person? Do they have a different outlook? Could I potentially re-fall in love with this person? Obviously, I found aspects of them in the first place that I was interested in, and I fell in love with them. Maybe they made some poor decisions at the time, and then years later, we come back together again. Maybe they learned from their mistakes. They dealt with whatever they had to deal with, and then that also kind of takes me back to how you need to be comfortable in like the person you are before you can ever like marry somebody. Mm-hmm. So it's like if you have any insecurities, if you have any like doubts, if you have any thoughts in your mind before getting married to someone, then it's like I just don't see how it could necessarily end up being like a strong, healthy relationship. So it's like if that extra time is what that person needed to get to the point where they needed to be at, to then be in a committed, faithful relationship, and you can re-fall in love with that person, I don't see why that would be an issue. But it's like if they did it, like if I was in the relationship when they did it with them, obviously I'd probably divorce them, because it's like that's not acceptable to me. Then we should have been married. Maybe you weren't ready for marriage or something like that.
Yeah.
But then years down the road, obviously, I fell in love with you enough, fell in love with enough about you to marry you in the first place. Maybe years down the road, you've kind of figured it out. I am for forgiveness, mm-hmm. but I just can't. Being like self-aware of how I know I am, mm-hmm. I don't think I could stay married to someone who if there was some type of cheating, infidelity along those lines, because that's not something that I would be okay with. I would constantly be questioning everything, and I know that me mentally, I would be in a way better state knowing that I don't have to go to sleep every single night, or I'm constantly worried about what they're doing. So it's like whether that's something that I think it's illogical, or it's like people would understand that. Mm-hmm. I also understand, some people can grow past that and be like, okay, I forgive you, we're going to move on. I just know that in my head that that's not the person that I am. I know that it's like what's done is done. Maybe years down the road.
My thing is like, let's say, your wife cheats on you, like because she got really drunk, or maybe there was some other drugs involved or whatever, and just one thing led to another, but it was still conscious, right? Like a conscious act. That makes me wonder if maybe that wasn't the person for you to begin with, because maybe you should have like noticed those signs about that person, and like going into it. But I'd be like, no, like this, it still goes to show your character that you chose to put yourself in a position where you could have
temptation.
Yeah, fallen into temptation, so.
If you haven't gotten calls from your girl hammered in Wrigleyville asking for you to come pick her up,
she not the one.
It's like that one song at that opening line in one of Drake's songs where it's like, if your girl has ever and you see her open her basketball game, just know she's somebody on the team. Yeah.
Another thing I want to throw out there is self-awareness for marriage. All right, self-awareness.
Yeah. one last thing, I just like a small anecdote. I have a friend who recently got married to a girl, and she's from a different country. They met in Europe, and her visa was expiring. She was afraid to go back to her home country because she didn't know if she'd get stuck there because of COVID, but they were in love. So they didn't get married specifically for this reason because they were in love. Well, they got married partly because he's a European citizen. They're in Europe right now. So if they got married, she'd be able to stay without having to worry about the visa and stuff. But like I said, they fell in love. And it was interesting because as I was talking to him, I kind of asked him like, oh, this seems really quick and stuff. I'm really happy for you guys. Like, more power to you, whatever, We're all young and we have our whole lives to live ahead of us. And he was saying, yeah, I was talking to my dad a little bit, and throughout that because of that conversation, essentially, it was that even if they end up realizing that they're not meant for each other, because he's 24, she's 20, that at least he did something good for another person and allowed her to finish school and stay with her parents, because her parents are also with her. That's why she's there in the first place. And divorce sucks, right? But at least he was doing like a genuine good act, and in the end, like, they can, divorce doesn't have to be bad. You can just come to terms of like, look, we're just not meant for each other. Kind of what you were saying earlier, like you just jumped into it a little too quick. But at least he made her life better in that aspect, that she didn't have to worry about the whole legality aspect and stuff. So,
and I think a lot of that comes down to the upfront conversations that you have prior to actually getting married. It's like understanding and like, okay, we're doing this now. I mean, I do like you, but we also understand that this is why we're doing it.
Mm-hmm.
And in that instance, maybe the divorce would more feel like a breakup, not necessarily like because divorce has such a negative connotation to it.
Yeah.
And you always feel like it has to be overly emotional, like over the top in every way. Where in that instance, if they did get divorced, that would feel more like a break. Like they were doing something that benefited each other. They liked each other enough to where it was helping the other person. That it's like if they did get divorced, that would probably feel just more like a breakup than anything else, especially if there's no like significant finances, children, and anything along those lines involved.
Yeah,
I don't see that would necessarily be a bad thing.
It's just kind of coming to terms and like a realization that it was fun, but this isn't, it's not for me, type of thing.
That just kind of hurt my heart in a weird way. But that being said, it's good to hear that divorce can end positively, depending on the type of people that.
Not that it's a positive thing, but it doesn't have to be.
Doesn't have to be bad.
Traumatic and disastrous.
Most people would have to have really good qualities in their personality, I feel like,
to be able to handle it well.
Handle something like that, yeah. I think they'd need a lot of patience and or they'd have to be very reasonable people.
Emotional awareness.
A lot of things,
And I also think that it starts with just even the person that you are when you get married anyway. If you are two good people that get married and realize that it's like, hey, this just isn't working out for us, like there isn't any like traumatic event or anything, it's just like there's just nothing here.
Yeah.
Even if, like, I know I kind of said, like, kids and everything involved, it's like I still think you can have a respectful mutual split where it's like we're just not as happy as we can be. And I think a lot of that starts with figuring out the person that you are first, and then moving on from there. So it's like you can't lose your individuality when you're in a marriage, and as long as if it's just not working out, I don't think there definitely is not a reason that you should be trying to force it to make it work.
Yeah.
It's not worth, I mean, it is worth work if both parties want to work for it. But if that's just not there, then it's like, okay, why can't we just have like a mutual, respectful split and move on from there?
I think if I was in a relationship and my wife and I had kids, but we knew that we kind of no longer wanted to be with each other, I wonder, I mean, it's easy for me to say this now, not even being in a relationship, but I think I'd be okay with talking to her like, look, we're not working out together, like, that's fine, I get it. We don't have to tell the kids, but we can like live in the same house and like at least let's be humans with each other. Like you're still a human. I'm gonna care for you. I don't want anything bad to happen to you. We have history and like kids, so like kind of bite the bullet for the kids aspect and be like, look, if you want to see other people, that's fine. I'm gonna do my own thing, but we can at least live in the same house and like don't start involved. Like now you kind of almost have to start living two lives, sort of. Just to like hold face for your kids, at least until they're like I'm imagining too that the kids are very young. Once they're like after 18, then like they're adults, you can kind of break it down to them a little bit, right? And like explain to them the situation. But for the sake of like that development, unless it was something like totally tragic that happened between the two of you that you did need to end it, then unless that happened, I think I'd consider the fact of, like I said, biting the bullet.
And I mean, I don't want to get too personal on things, but that's pretty much the situation that I grew up in. Especially end of high school and through college. So it's like I was older, and my parents definitely weren't working out very well. To the point where they were like separated my first 2-3 years of college. They did end up coming back together, but it's not like, you know, they had their own problems that they had to work through. They worked through their own problems, and now they realized they're like, hey, we're, 59 and 52 years old. We've kind of figured ourselves out. They needed the time apart. Before that, it's like not even like they really were together, but them not being like honest about it and growing up and like being around that at all times definitely took a toll on like my sister and I, or the reason why I did stay at school pretty often. But at the same time, them taking that time apart to kind of figure themselves out and take care of stuff that they had to. Now it's like, now they're like as happy as they were when I remember them as a kid. So it's like
that split was necessary.
It kind of came full circle. They had things that they had to work on themselves that they weren't really addressing for a while that led to that point, and now kind of coming all back together, just like, hey, we've kind of figured out what we liked about each other in the first place. Kind of have different ground rules now, but we want to continue to grow old with each other. So it's like, it's a very non-traditional type marriage where it's, start to finish as happy as you can be. But they did what they felt like they had to and ended up coming back to being like, hey, we still want to be with each other.
Yeah.
But it's like, so, the whole aspect of them kind of being like, well, maybe we should, kind of just stick it out for the kids would have worked if there wasn't that resentment there that we could sense.
Yeah.
So it's like,
it would be pretty hard.
Yeah. So it was difficult on us, but at the same time, they got to a better point mentally to where they figured out what they wanted, and they both agreed that they ended up wanting to stay together. So it's like, it never was a full-on thing. And I don't want to get like too far into it or like bring the room down, but it's like they're good. We're very happy now. Everyone's good.
That's good.
But there was a time period where they were going through pretty much exactly what you were talking about.
Yeah, that's first, thanks for sharing that story.
Yeah.
honestly.
Yeah.
We really appreciate it. Nonetheless, that's hard to go through. And I mean, what I'm hearing, regardless of any type of situation, is that, you know, you can go through anything. You can go through a mode of things. Hopefully, in that case, you know, if in the future, if any of us goes through a mode of things, right, you know, we can come back to that. You know, come back to that circle, finish off strong, and, you know, come back to the reason why we even began something as such. You know.
Okay.
That being said, I want to have some closing remarks. 1, thank you for coming. 2, thank you for coming.
Yeah, absolutely.
Reoccurring guest.
Reoccurring guests. I really appreciate the conversation.
Yeah.
Everybody out there, I hope you guys took something away from this as well. I know I took a good, you know, aspect of love away from your, you know.
Yeah. Any other things you guys want to add before we sign off?
No, thanks for having me. It was a great conversation having with you guys. Great to see you guys. I haven't seen you guys in a long time, so
Yeah.
good
Yeah.
to.
Nice little reunion.
Yeah, met you guys 8 years ago, and here we are.
Yeah. Crazy.
For real.
Right?
So
Thanks for joining us. Remember, like, subscribe, share with your friends and family.
we'll see you guys in the next one.
Thank you.
Cool. All right, boys.
イタチ、最後に約束しろ。